Good evening again, everyone. Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna share my screen now. 1 second. Okay. Okay. So yesterday we started talking about Scrum. We already know how Scrum is related to Agile. We started deep diving into Scrum yesterday. Okay, so as we go along, I want you guys to ask me questions because it will help me in terms of, giving you different scenarios. Okay, so as we go along, if you have questions, please don't hold back. Okay. So we talked about Scrum yesterday. We defined Scrum. We said Scrum can be very easy to understand. It can also be difficult to master. We talked about that it is lightweight, right? We said Scrum is founded on empiricism, right? So we talked about that the Scrum framework consists of roles, events, and artifacts. And for the roles, we said product owners, Scrum Master, and developers. For the events, we said sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective, right? But I also mentioned that there is also another event that the team does, even though it is not prescribed by Scrum, which is called the backlog refinement. We talked about artifacts, right? We have 3 artifacts: the product backlog, the sprint backlog, and the product increment. We all talked about that yesterday. So we talked about that Scrum is based on empirical process control, right? And for you to actually be able to do that, right? This empirical process control, we talked about the fact that it's based on that empirism. And for you to do that, you have to have experience, like knowledge from experience and observation, right? And for you to be able to achieve that knowledge from experience and observation from those evidence, you need to put some things in place to help you, right? Because you're going to be making decisions based on those observations. And what Scrum has put in place for the empirical process are these 3 pillars, which is transparency, inspection, and adaptation. So we talked about all that yesterday, right? So that it will help you. So for you to create transparency, Scrum has put those events in place, right? Also daily Scrum. So they've prescribed it. So we talked about all that yesterday. We talk about the Scrum values, right? Courage, focus, commitment, respect, openness, what each of this means, and why everyone on the Scrum team must uphold these values. We said openness, you're having issues, talk about it, don't hide it. Let everyone know, right? Let the stakeholder know that there's an issue, right? So, those are the things we talked about yesterday. We talked about the fact that Gafa, what did you say?
I said adaptation or adaptation. Sorry? Adaptation, okay. Because on the slide you can see adaptation. So that's what I'm trying to...
okay. It's adaptation.
Okay, thank you.
I got that from the internet.
Oh, okay. I'll change it from here. Thank you.
Okay. So we talked about the fact that the team, the developer needs to be cross-functional and self-managing, right? We explain what it means to be cross-functional, right? Meaning that instead of them working in their different expertise, they come together, right? Together, and they are called the development team. but now they call them developers in the new guide, right? Self-managing, nobody is managing them. They self-organize so that you can get the best out of their team. They decide how they want to work, right? So that's what we meant by self-managing. You know, what consists of the Scrum team? We have the product owner, we have the Scrum master, and we have the developers. When we say developers, it doesn't mean that they are all coders, right? Developers is just the general name that is used for people on the Scrum team. We now give a sample of what the Scrum team might likely look like, right? So you might have business analysts, right? You know, supporting the product owner, gathering business needs, you know, and all that. You have an architect. I've told you what an architect will look like, right? Sometimes the architect is just like the technical lead, someone that understands what you're trying to do technically, right? And you also have developers, people that will actually get the work done, right? Then you have the QA, people that will test the work. We've talked about QA last week, right? People that will test the work. So that's what a sample might look like. And I also said that a lot of people are already embracing Scrum. So you might get a team that they might not be this technical, like maybe a team in HR that is trying to, you know, use Scrum to get their work done, right? You might not see a lot of technical people, but because it started from technology, most of the roles you'll see will be more technology based, okay? We also talk about Scrum in a nutshell, right? We describe what Scrum is in a nutshell. I also give you an example of how to run a 2-week Scrum, what you do on the first day, what you do on the second day, what you do on the third day till you finish that sprint. We also talk about the roles of Scrum Master, right? I said I'll give you a document that contains all this, right? You know, what the Scrum Master is supposed to do, right? How do you help? Right? Protect the team from outside distractions, right? You are responsible to educating the team, right? Educating the PO, that's your role. You are like the process master, right? You're the one that owns the process. So they call you master of the process, right? I also talked about the ways you can serve the product owner, ways you can serve the developer, and way you can serve your organization, right? So there's something that, you know, I don't know if I mentioned that yesterday, that sometimes you get to a team and you have a product owner that doesn't even understand, you know, what you're doing in terms of using the Scrum to implement project. If the product owner does not understand, you have to teach the product owner, right? You have to teach them that, okay, they need to create a backlog. They need to be able to maintain a backlog. That's your responsibility as the Scrum Master, to teach the product owner if they don't know how to do it. You help them understand that, right? If your team is asking you, why are we meeting every day? Right, when they say daily Scrum, like I have a team right now, one of my team, right? They don't meet every day. They meet 3 times a week. The 2 days, they still do the daily Scrum, but they do it via chat, right? They do it via chat, but they still do it. So when they say meet daily, it doesn't mean that, because sometimes it can be difficult. It depends on where your team members are. You have people in diverse locations, right? So it depends on where you are working, right? So you might have team in different countries, you understand? But you have to try and look for a way to make it work. So it's either you open up a chat where they are talking on some days, and maybe you meet 3. So depending on the team, but you have to explain to them why they have to have that discussion every day, why we have to have that 15-minute discussion, right? Because if you have any impediment that might affect the goal of the sprint, we need to discuss it. We need to see a way to remove it. If something we can't remove, we know is a blocker, but we have to document why we were unable to do that task within that sprint. So your role as a Scrum Master is to ensure that this process is working accordingly. And to get to a point when your team is okay, they will be high performing because they already understand that process. They are comfortable with it, okay? I also mentioned that there's this checklist that you're going to get, that checklist will help you to understand the things you need to do as a Scrum Master, right? There's a list, a checklist that you can follow for you just to know that, okay, you're doing all the things you need to do. So it also depends on the organization you get to. The maturity level might not be, at the peak, right? You know, there are different maturity level, right? So maybe they are still beginners, right? So your role is to help them, you know, to start it, like putting the things in place, like the ceremonies in place, explaining what the ceremonies are for, the agendas of those ceremonies, right? But when you get to a team that is more like they are growing, right? Or they are more matured, you want to ensure that you have this checklist to help you to ensure that you are doing all the things you need to do, right? Like one of the questions they say, is the product backlog prioritized according to his or our latest thinking? So they are asking the Scrum Master, there's a question here that's saying that, is the product backlog prioritized? So you as a Scrum Master, we can ask the product owner, is the product backlog prioritized? Like, is it the latest thinking? When they say the latest thinking, that means she has the discussion with the business. Like, is this what we are valuing? Is this what the next thing they are looking at having? Like, you know, so that's what they meant by that. So you can ask those kind of questions to the product owner, because the product owner is accountable for the backlog. He can delegate people to help get the job done, but the product owner is accountable for the backlog. You know, these are some of the things, right? This is also 42 tasks of a Scrum Master. I'll also send you that, right? So the first one says review, not resolve, right? So sometimes there's always blind spot that the team is not saying, but you as a Scrum Master looking at it over the overview, you can see some of those issues. You reveal it to them. It's not like, oh, there's a problem, I have to solve the problem. There are sometimes you are not even able to solve any problem, but your role is to let them see that a problem is coming. Right? You mediate conflict. There will be issues because sometimes the development team will not agree. They won't agree. How do you resolve issues? One of the ways you can resolve team issues is using your team norms. I'll show you a video how team norms was used to resolve development issue, the developers that were having issues, right? So because they were not aligning, right? So your role is to mediate, right? So you mediate to resolve those conflicts, right? Product owner, right? You're responsible for maximizing value of the development team effort. That is your key role, right? You are maximizing value of what they are developing because you are the one from the business. You are the representative of the business, right? You are the one that when the development team they have questions about what they are building, you are the one that will answer the questions, right? So you are the one that will be able to tell them that, okay, oh, this is what we are trying to do. You are the one that will tell them what the product vision is, right? So it is your responsibility, right? Sometimes when you order the backlog, they will tell you, oh, this you can't do, you need to, there's a dependency, you know. When they tell you all those things, you can go back to the business and say, oh, we might not be able to achieve this during next sprint because there's a dependency, but I think we'll move it to the next sprint. You know, you have that relationship. So you must have a strong interpersonal skill, right? You must be able to relate, right? No, so the PO is the person that can make final decision relating to the product, not even the business. The PO will relate with the business, right? So after all those decisions have been made, the final decision, the PO will do that, right? Because the PO has the ultimate authority on the product. As long as you've said this PO to represent you, the business, to represent us on that product, he or she has the ultimate power, right? And it's only the PO that can terminate a sprint. So the PO can terminate the sprint for different reasons. Maybe what you're working on is not valuable anymore, right? Or maybe what you're trying to do is not meeting expectation. But you as the Scrum Master cannot say, oh, we are canceling this sprint. Even though you know that something like that is happening, you will reveal that to the product owner. You would discuss that with the product owner. Like for me, separately, I always have a meeting, right? You have like a inner caucus meeting before you even go to the development team. You discuss on your own. You can schedule one-on-one meeting with the product owner as a Scrum Master. You have your meeting before you actually go to the team to have another meeting, right? So that you can clarify issues, you can discuss. So anytime you're a Scrum Master, you have a team, one thing you want to do is you want to have like a meeting, a pre-meeting before the main meeting with your product owner. And it's not like all the time. Maybe before a sprint planning session, maybe before a backlog refinement. Those are the times you want to have like special meetings with your product owner, or you can create a chat group with you and your product owner where you can be discussing to make sure that things are in alignment, before you go to the development team. But the product owner is the only one that can terminate a sprint. So these are some of the responsibility of a product owner. We've talked about vision, right? So we've talked about roadmap, right? All the things you want to do, right? Putting them together, right? Your roadmap is what is those items, those features on your roadmap is what goes into your backlog. Okay, I'll show you an example. I also have a checklist for the product owner. The things you have to be able to do to ensure that you're working. So as for the product vision, right? Do I have
bringing check? No.
Friday.
Friday check.
Do I have a product vision, right? So if you get to a team and there is no product vision, when you ask questions, they say there's no product vision. As the product owner, you know that you need to work on the product vision because it gives you clarity. It helps you to understand what are you even trying to do. It helps you to understand that. It breaks those barriers for you, right? Product backlog. I have a product backlog. As a product owner, you get to a team. Is there a product backlog? There's no product backlog. That means you know that you need to develop a product backlog, right? So you need to document the features, right? And those features are what will go into your product backlog. Developers, those are the people getting the job done. We say they are self-organizing. They manage themselves. They are cross-functional, right? They create their sprint backlog. Remember, the development team are the people that have that skill to do the job, right? And one thing you want to know is that for the developers, they are the owners of the sprint backlog, right? The product owner is the owner of the product backlog, but the developers are the owner of the sprint backlog. Everyone is a leader here, right? They are natural leaders. They don't want to be micromanaged. They want to when they say they will do something, they will do it. They commit to it because they believe in the Scrum values, right? So when they say, I will get this done, they will get it done. So they see themselves as equal. They respect each other's opinion, okay? We talk about the sprint. We said the sprint is just a container. The sprint is like the heartbeat of Scrum, right? So it's just a container that contains all the ceremonies. And the ceremonies are sprint planning, daily Scrum, sprint review, sprint retrospective. And I started the backlog because I said, even though it is not prescribed by Scrum, for you to have successful sprint, you need to always have a backlog refinement, okay? And this is just showing you some of the things you need to have, right, for each of the ceremonies. I will go into it deeply, so don't worry about that. So this is just like also an overview, right, that shows you that, okay, during the sprint planning, what do? You set the goals, right? You create your sprint backlog. The Scrum Master start the sprint. When every question that has been answered, everyone has understood what needs to be done, then the Scrum Master starts the sprint. The daily commitment is 15 minutes. The entire team attend, same place, same time. Just do a reoccurrence meeting in your calendar, right? Same time, same place, right? And you're always telling the team to move their stories across the Scrum board, because if they don't move the story, your burn down chart will look funny, right? And all the items will still be in to do, and your board will not represent the true state of the work you're doing. So that's why you want everyone to keep moving their stories, right? Reviews like demo meeting. At the end of the 2 weeks, you come together, stakeholders attend. You present, what have we actually done this sprint, right? What did we achieve? Then you do a retrospect, based on all the things you've done, the process, did it work for us? What are the things we think we should change? Sometimes even my retrospect, we might just, have a game. We might just discuss. I want people to relax, we talk, we gist, what is happening? How did it go? What happened? We celebrate people that have, their birthdays, we give shout outs, and all that. So you make your retrospective fun, right? There are different retrospectives you can do. If your retrospective is boring, your team will not come. They will tell you, they have other things to do, right? So at the Scrum Master, you have to look for ways to make it fun. You have to remember things, right? When people talk about maybe one of the programs, like maybe, especially when you have a diverse team, you want to understand the holidays for each of your team. So maybe you have Indians, you have Chinese, you want to know when the Chinese Happy New Year is, so that when it's that time, you can, greet the people that are from that part of the world in your team, you can greet them, right? So you want to be very versatile. You want to know what is happening, right? So it motivates the team. It makes them feel welcome, right? So as the Scrum Master, you need to be aware of all these things. So this is just saying the same thing, that you need to have a consistent sprint length, right? Because most time you can't say this week we'll do 2 weeks, then next week you say we're doing 4 weeks. No, you don't keep changing it, right? So when you say 2 weeks, it is 2 weeks. When you want to do a 4-week sprint, it is a 4-week sprint, and you keep that reoccurrence, right? No new work is pushed. That is just saying that when the sprint has started, you don't want to keep pushing work from the backlog into the sprint, right? You've agreed, because if you keep pushing work, it will change the velocity of the team. It will affect it, right? So you don't want to keep pushing new work. You've agreed, then you just go with it. If overcommitted, renegotiate. So when you are doing sprint planning and you are committing if you've committed a lot of things that you want to do, but you know that the team can't do it, the Scrum Master and the developers will discuss with the product owner to renegotiate that this work might be too much for us to achieve this sprint, right? You don't want to, we can't finish it. So can we take some out? Like you renegotiate, right? The Scrum Master, you help facilitate those kind of negotiation, because you want to keep the development team happy, right? If they are not happy, the work don't get done, right? So you want to keep reminding them that, okay, if you commit to something, we need to get it done, right? So you don't want them to overcommit, right? So you don't want them to do that. Is there a documented outcome of the sprint review and retrospective? Yes, there's a documented outcome, and I'll show you shortly. So for sprint planning, right? Everyone attend, right? We've talked about this before, right? Everyone attend the sprint planning, right? The Scrum team, including shared resources. So what do they mean by shared resources? Shared resources are those people that we said, oh, we need to discuss something about cybersecurity during the planning meeting. You have to invite them. So the Scrum Master has to know ahead that, okay, we might need someone from cybersecurity to come on board. So you make sure that the person is aware, and you share the meeting invite with the person to come, because one of the items we'll be discussing during that sprint will include cybersecurity, right? So note something. The sprint planning is the first event of your sprint. You don't do sprint planning before you start your meeting. The first day of your sprint is when you do sprint planning. Day one, right? One thing you also want to know is that everything happens within the sprint, right? You don't pause sprint. You don't say, okay, we finish this sprint. You take 2 days off. You start another sprint. No. No pausing. You finish this sprint, you're starting the next sprint. People that need a break will take a break. Then when they take a break, the capacity of your team will reduce for that sprint, right? So maybe you've been doing 40 story points. 3 of your team members now take a break. You put it into cognizance for that sprint. So maybe your velocity for that sprint might be reduced to 30 or 35 because 3 people are on holiday for like 5 days, right? So that's what happens. It doesn't mean that you stop the sprint. You don't stop the sprint, right? You just take into cognizance that some people are on holiday. So the capacity for your sprint will reduce, okay? So what is the duration of your sprint planning should be 2 to 8 hours, depending on your sprint length. So if your sprint length is 4 weeks, they recommend you do 8 hours. If your sprint length is a 2-week sprint, your sprint cadence is a 2-week sprint, they recommend you do 4 hours. Please don't go and book a 4 hours meeting. Nobody's going to attend with you, okay? Mostly you book 1 hour. If you need more than 1 hour, you book 1 hour, 30 minutes. If it's going to be 2 hours, you can, especially because we are online, it's difficult to keep people for 2 hours straight. So you book 1 hour, then maybe before the close of business, you book another 1 hour. The same day, but at different times, right? You know, or understand your team. You can discuss with your team. How do you want us to structure this, right? And if you do a very good backlog refinement meeting, your sprint planning should not take you more than 1 hour. But they've recommended that for a two-week sprint, you do 4 hours. That 4 hours is time box. What they're saying is that don't do more than 4 hours, right? It doesn't mean you have to use the whole 4 hours, right? Frequency. You do your sprint planning 1 per sprint, which is the first day of your sprint, right? What are the inputs? You need your ordered product backlog. What does that mean? Your prioritized backlog. That means your backlog has to be prioritized. What does that mean? That means you'll have done backlog refinement in the sprints before this, so that your backlog is refined already before you bring them to the sprint planning, right? What was completed in the last sprint / product increment? What did we actually complete in the last sprint? What we completed, does it affect what we want to do next? Does it, you want to compare that, does it have that relationship? Past performance of the development team, the velocity. What is your velocity? What did we complete? I'll show you what velocity is shortly. Let's say we completed 40 story points, right? Development team capacity for the sprint. So what is our development capacity? The team, what is their capacity, right? What is their capacity? Meaning that I've explained that already, that what can they do? What can they do, right? So if someone is on holiday, you know that even though we finished 40 story point last sprint, it doesn't mean we'll finish 40 story points, right? So those are the things you want to put in cognizance. Or the team might say, you know what, still add the story. If I get the opportunity, I'll start working on it before Nissan comes back from holiday. Right? So it depends on your team. Some are very motivated. They want to add more to their work, right? Or they will say, oh, my other project, I don't really have a lot of things to do there. Can I have more story points in this project, right? So as you are discussing with the team, you will understand the velocity, right? So now, as a skilled Scrum Master, you need to help your team focus on achieving the goal, right? Because at the end of the day, you have to ensure that you accomplish what you want to accomplish before that time box expires, right? You want to ensure that you do that. So what do we discuss in sprint planning? 2 things, right? The first one, what will be done in this sprint, right? What will be done in this sprint? And how can it be delivered? You want to understand those 2 things, right? How can we deliver it? So the first thing, what will be done this sprint? You're saying that we should define the sprint goal. The team comes together to define the sprint goal, but the major responsibility will lie with the product owner. But the team will actually come together, because sometimes some of the items you want to do in that sprint might be technical items, right? So the sprint will define what the goal of that sprint is, right? The selected PBI is influencing the Scrum team in defining the product sprint goal. Now, what they're saying here is that sometimes you might not even craft the goal from the beginning. You've just prioritized your backlog. By the time you start picking the items you want to do, the features you want to do, it will now help you realize that, okay, the goal for this sprint is ability to do a payment integration stuff, right? Because the items you are picking, they are all focusing on payments, right? So that's how that decision is made, right? Okay. The Scrum Master role in sprint planning is the Scrum Master facilitates the sprint planning. You ensure that it happens. You are the one planning it. You are asking the right questions. You are the one that will bring the capacity of the team. You understand that they did 40 story last sprint. Now they are trying to do 60 story point. You are asking questions. Why are you doing 60? Where did you see the capacity to be able to do that? Okay, who is going to be on holiday? Are you on holiday? Okay, how does that affect the goal of this sprint? Do you sure we'll be able to achieve the goal of this sprint? You are asking the right questions, right? That's the role of the Scrum Master here. how to do the selected work to get it done. So here you're just looking at the work and say, okay, how are we going to do this work? Okay, so this story, can we break it into tasks? Now, all this, if you do them in backlog refinement, you don't come to sprint planning and start doing them. Because by the time you do them in backlog refinement, it's already estimated, and that's what most organizations do, right? And it's your responsibility as the Scrum Master to ensure those estimations are done, right? So when you finish your sprint planning, what is expected? What is the output? The output is that you have your sprint goal and you have your sprint backlog. Your sprint goal and your sprint backlog. So when those stories are being moved to your sprint backlog, they will have something they call definition of ready. For every organization is different. Some people use invest. Some people have their own crafted definition of ready, right? To decide to say, okay, this story must not have any dependency. That means I don't have to move it to the sprint. Then I'll now start waiting. Oh, I'm still waiting for Topper to do the so why did you move it to that sprint if you are still waiting on the dependency, right? There's no point, because it will just be sitting there doing nothing, right? So you want to make sure that it is not depending on anything. It is estimable, right? You want to make sure that it is testable. You want to make sure that you can negotiate it, right? So those are some of the definition of ready items. So for each organization, they will decide what their definition of ready is. Like one of our definition of ready is that the design must have been completed before you move it in for any development work. The design should be completed. So every organization will have a way they define their own definition of ready. So those are the two items that comes out of your sprint planning, your goal and your sprint backlog. When it is done, everybody has agreed, the Scrum Master starts the sprint. So the Scrum Master will now say, the sprint is active. And I'll show you how to start a sprint in Jira. Daily Scrum. What happens in daily Scrum? What happens in daily Scrum, right? The Scrum team attend the daily Scrum, right? And sometimes some other people will attend your daily Scrum, but it doesn't mean they have to talk. They are just there, right? It doesn't mean they have to talk, right? Your daily Scrum should not be more than 15 minutes, right? But sometimes it might be more than 15 minutes, but make sure that when, let's say, Chioma is giving update, Chioma is talking, Scrum Master, is your responsibility to say, oh, Chioma, okay, you want to discuss that? Okay, can you just let me go around, let everyone give their, concerns and update, then we'll come back to you. That means that everybody will go out and discuss. So by the time Chioma is now talking about our issues in terms of going deep into that issues, some people might even leave when the Scrum meeting is over, because at that point in time, you are discussing parking lot. They call them parking lot items. You are now discussing parking lot items. So people that can help Chioma will wait and they can discuss it. Some people will just leave and continue doing, what they need to work on. But if you let Chioma continue, the whole 15 minutes will be used on Chioma, and you don't want to do that, right? So it's your responsibility as a Scrum Master to guide those discussions, guide it to make sure that everybody talk. And why are we doing the daily Scrum? Inspect and adapt. Yeah, inspecting and adapt to further progress towards the sprint goal. Because people will ask you, why are we doing this? Right? We're doing it because we want to keep inspecting, we want to make sure that there is nothing stopping us. Another reason why we do it is that you want to ensure that the development team knowledge sharing, right? They understand that, okay, this is going on. Oh, it's Chini that is working on this. Okay, I can discuss with Chini on this thing. I want to try and understand what she's doing, right? It's transparent, right? So it shows that over time, research has shows that if your team are doing an effective daily Scrum meeting, right, your team will be very it will be very successful. Like you'll practically have a successful implementation of Scrum, of the framework, because it will help. There's a lot of collaboration. Everybody's discussing, things are happening, like they're talking to each other. You know what this person is doing. They're giving updates if they have an issue. You know who to go and talk to easily. Even you as the Scrum Master, everything will be so clear, right? So the daily Scrum is very important, and the goal is to inspect and adapt, okay? So this is, and I'm just showing you an example of what the visual board will look like, right? I will still show you in Jira, to do, working, done. You're moving your work. You're moving in as you're getting to everything will start from to do, during the sprint planning. Then you now keep moving it, okay? Sometimes I move their board for them when I get time. Okay, you're not moving your board. You're not moving your board. You help them, but you say, remember to move your board. When you get to the retrospective, you remind them again, right? Because sometimes they will do the work. They will move. Sometimes they will even move. They will not even say any comments on it. They will not add any story, right? So what did, you want them to add comments. You want them to move their board. So you keep telling them, but when your team is very mature, they will do this. You as the Scrum Master won't even need to talk too much. They will do all this, right? So sprint review. Sprint review is the last day of your sprint, right? Who attend? Your Scrum team, some shared resources that are interested, your stakeholders, right? So what is the duration? They will say 1 to 4 hours. So if you are doing a 2-week sprint, you spend 2 hours. To be candid with you, I don't think we spend more than 1 hour on sprint review. What are we reviewing? After we talk about what we've done and all those details, the objective, we talk about if we have any issues and all that, we do the demo, right? After we finish the demo, we talk about next steps and all that. So sometimes you might not even spend more than 45 minutes, depending on what you achieve for that sprint, right? So what's the objective of your sprint review? Collaboratively inspect the product increment. So you are looking at the increment you've put in place to say, is it good? You are trying to get feedback, right? So now the product owner can demo, right? But sometimes the product owner might not demo. It might be one of the development, it might be the business analyst, it might be the developer that will present, right? But you present it, people will ask questions, you keep answering, everybody will be discussing, So if everything is fine, they will accept it. If it's not fine, they will give you feedback. Then you cannot adapt your product backlog based on those discussions, right? Because you understand that, for the next sprint, these are some of the feedback that we might work on and all that, right? So these are topics, right, that is covered. Provide an overview of the sprint goal, the development to demonstrate the product increment, the PO adds appropriate feedback into the backlog based on what, what the team, what the stakeholders are saying. And the Scrum Master ensure this event happens, right? Sometimes they will ask the Scrum Master questions. Oh, how come the team is doing so, like the velocity they did during this sprint is 30, but they've been doing 50, you can say, oh, we had a lot of issues during this sprint, maybe some people were sick, some people were on holiday and all that. So you want to be able to demonstrate the health of your team, like what is happening, So those are the things that they might ask the Scrum Master. Sometimes it might be an impediment you are following up on, they will ask the questions about it and you'll be able to answer those questions, okay? So, but you are responsible, you make sure this happens, you facilitate that event, okay? So I just said this is the sample of a sprint review. I will still show you one on a PowerPoint. So you have your sprint objective. You talk about what you accomplished during that sprint. If you did not finish that sprint, what was incomplete? Sorry, what the team health is, that's your velocity. How are you guys doing, right? Demo. So you demo, you call the person that needs to demo. After the demo, you get feedback, risks and challenges. Most times the risks and challenges, we do it before the demo, because after the demo is feedback, then the executive asks you just to say, oh, did we accept that increment? Or maybe we need to do some rework. If everything is accepted, we talk about what the next steps is. Why is it easy for you to talk about the next step? Because you've done backlog refinement. You've ordered your backlog. You bring some of those items to discuss and say, this is what we are planning to do in the next sprint. So this is what your sprint review will look like. So sprint retrospective, the last day of your sprint as well, right? The Scrum team attend, right? If you are not working on that project, you are not part of this meeting. Only the people working on that project that will attend this meeting, right? It's between 1 to 3 hours. It happens once per sprint, and it happens on the last. It's the last event of the sprint. So this is the final event, right? And you do it immediately. Well, don't let me say immediately. I do it immediately after the sprint review, right? And it's very important. Don't neglect it. A lot of people used to neglect this because they feel that there's nothing to improve in the process, we are okay, you know. But it's very important, even if there is nothing to improve, let the team come together. When they are talking, gisting, before you know it, they will say something and you know that, oh, we need to work on this, right? So it's very important you do your retrospective. Some people feel that this is very important, it's one of the best events, you know, in the Scrum, you know. So the Scrum Master is the owner of this process. Make sure you are there. You are an active participant. You are the one asking the questions. You are the one trying to find the root cause. You are the one trying to ensure that there's an improvement. So you are the one gathering all the action items. So you are very, very key in the retrospective meeting. Okay, I documented how you can run your retrospective, right? How do you run your retrospective? You want to set the stage, right? You want to gather data. You want to generate insight, decide what to do, then do a retro wrap-up, right? I'll show you what I mean by set the stage, gather the data, generate insight, decide what to do, and retro wrap-up. And I also documented here the types of retrospectives, right, that we have. We have the start, stop, continue. So you're saying that what should we start doing? What are the things we are not doing that you would like to see? Or what should we stop doing? Or what are the things we actually do that you like? Let's continue. We are asking those questions. You can even, sometimes we use collaborative tools. So you just design it and put it in a document and people will start updating it, right? You don't even need to be asking questions. You just put a time box. Okay, I'm giving you 5 minutes. Can you start documenting all the things you want us to start doing, the things you know we're not doing? What can we start doing? Then they start documenting it, right? After that, you give them another 3 minutes. What are the things you don't like? What are the things you dislike that you want us to stop doing? Then they document it again, right? So after that, then you talk about what continue. You know, when you start doing all that, at that point, what you are doing is you are gathering data, right? You are gathering data. So after you finish gathering the data, then you now discuss, you know, about those data you've gathered. That's when they say you generate insight. When you generate insight, you now decide that, okay, what are the action items? What are the things you think you should do? Then you are deciding what to do. Right? You are putting the action items together. Then after that, you wrap up your retro. So when they say setting the stage, what that means is that, you know, things like they call like icebreakers, like you do a game, right? I'll show you different kind of games that I've done with my team just to give you an idea. And you too can now start looking for more. I will give you a lot. We do a lot of drawer saws, gamiphone, song trivia. I do a lot of Kahoot. And they love it, right? So you have to be prepared to be able to do all those kind of, that's what we call the setting stage, set the stage, right? Then the other thing was what went well, what didn't go well, what next, right? That's another type of retrospective. We also have the like, the lack, the love, the length, right? I always like the length, the 4 L's, because I want to know what they've actually learned during that sprint. There's also the sailboat one as well. The 3 Little Pigs, Amazon review. So there are different type of retrospective you just keep changing them. Don't stick to one. Every day, don't do what went well, what didn't go well, what next, every day, every time. Do something else, right? So this is what your retrospective will look like. You follow this, set the stage, gather data, generate insight, decide what to do, and retro wrap up. And you can use any of this retro to decide, okay? Erica said, I apologize if I may have missed this, but what document do you use to keep track of your key sprint activity, planning, reviews, retrospective? For example, do you keep everything in one place for quick tracking and reference? So yes. So if your organization uses Confluence, so you can use Confluence, right? So for planning, I use Confluence, but at the end of the day, you have to move the items to Jira, because you have to track them on Jira, right? So, but some organization will just document it on Jira. For sprint reviews, you also use Confluence to document them. I prepare PowerPoint. So when I go to Confluence, I keep the PowerPoints on Confluence. In some organization that I've worked in before, we put the PowerPoint on SharePoint. Right? So when you get to the organization, you know what tools they use for Artifact, what tool they use to document, right? So you keep documenting them there, right? So, but for the planning, backlog refinement, you use Jira mostly, or Asana, depending on the organization you are working for. Those are the common ones. After the product backlog items are developed, what happened to all these documents? Does anybody actually go back to look at the document from past sprints? I don't see any events within a sprint that mention lessons learned from past product development sprint, or they just become obsolete. They don't become obsolete. Those are the artifacts. That's what they call artifacts for the project, right? Those are the artifacts. So lesson learned is more like what you do in retrospective, right? To look at, what you've done during that 2 weeks. They don't wait till, the way we used to do waterfall, that you wait till the end, you now do lessons learned. We don't do that here. Every 2 weeks, you are doing your lessons learned. You are updating what you need to update. You are making things better, right? So when you finish the product, when everything is done, you just have your documentation, you have your artifact. And moreover, when you are working with product, most time, as I told you, the product don't end. You keep adding more features, you keep making it better, you keep growing, you keep getting matured till it dies off, right? So as long as the product is still alive, as long as the product is still going on, you're adding document, you're building stuff and all that. Okay, Erica.
Sorry about that. I was trying to get to my mute button. I guess my question, to be clear with it, is, let's say, for example, you wanted a quick, let's say it's a year from now, right? You've been working with a particular team and you want to have a quick kind of one source reference to see overall how things were done. Like, would you keep everything in one place, or have like a kind of like a summary of key metrics within that team of the sprints, if that makes sense? Just like an at a glance, like if I think of accounting, you have an income statement, but then you have a balance sheet, and the balance sheet is like your quick at a glance in terms of the health of, the organization, their current status. Is there something, if somebody wanted to, let's say there's a big project and they're looking to select a particular team as opposed to individual people, and they're coming to you as a Scrum Master to say, you know what, we want to look at your team's progress in these areas to determine if you want to take the whole team onto this complex project. Is there like a single source document that you have?
There is. So you're talking about the team health. So in Jira, there's something called the burn-up chart, the velocity chart, and all that, right? So at a glance, you can see the velocity of your team, how they are working. You can see this burn-down chart as well, right? You can also do like queries, jQueries, where you build dashboards, right? So from that dashboard, you can see all those details at once, right? Those are just using data, right? Now, for you to have those dashboard, for your velocity charts to be accurate, for your burn down chart to be accurate, you as the Scrum Master needs to ensure that the team are moving their stories, right? If they don't move their stories, all those things will not be accurate, right? So you want to ensure that they are moving their stories, they are doing what is right every sprint, so that by the time you are looking at those dashboards, you are looking at something accurate. But you can have those dashboards in Jira and in Confluence. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for it.
And for storing, we use mostly Confluence, right? So when you go to Confluence, you'll see all the details of what you store. And some organizations, some of them will use SharePoint. So when you get to every organization, you want to find out, what do you use for your artifact? Where do you store your artifact? Okay. Some people use Teams. In Teams, you can store documentation files. So you want to find out, right? So that you can store it in the right places where everyone within the team can see those documents. Okay. So recently, when I was trying to, learn more about remote retrospective, I found this here on YouTube, that talked about 8 principles for a remote retrospective. I will also send that to you, just to help, because most of the roles you're going to be getting, if you're going for a Scrum Master role, is going to be remote, right? You're even going to get some that might be fully remote. You're not going to go to the office at all, right? I've been working for the past 2 years. I've been working from home. I can't remember the last time I stepped into an office, so you want to learn different ways you can help your team, even though you don't see each other, right? So that ends That's of the event. So the artifacts, we have 3 artifacts: product backlog, sprint backlog, and product increment, right? So for the product, this artifact, is just something, I don't like say what artifact are. I don't want to say they are documents, right? Because sometimes it might not be documents, right? It might be even the products you are building, that the done product, that product that you're saying, that increment, that feature, that home page that you've just finished delivered is an artifact. So that's what we call the product increment. Product backlog, they are just stories that you documented, right? So these are the three artifacts that we have in Scrum. Remember, the product backlog is owned by the product owner, right? And for the refinements, you do it together as a team, right? But the product owner is responsible, or would I say is accountable for that. The sprint backlog is collectively done during the sprint planning. That's where you do that. The development team will curate their sprint backlog. That's what they want to do during that sprint, right? And it is owned by them, right? And the product increment is the sum of all the completed items that you finish during that sprint, right? So that's what we call the product increment. So every 2 weeks you're having an increment. But if you are running a 4-week sprint, every 4 weeks you're having an increment, right? So that's what we, that's what you keep doing every 2 weeks. So it's just the same thing as managing a project or, and all that. But what they are saying is that don't wait for too long. Every 2 weeks, let's do something. Let's show our progress. Let's show what we've achieved, okay? I've talked about product backlog. What is the most important to build next? One product owner, product backlog for one product, right? So even though you have different Scrum team, you can still have one product backlog, right? If all of you are working on one product, you have one product backlog, right? So you want to provide transparency, like this is what we are working on. You keep updating it, because you get ideas from stakeholders. By the time you go for review, there'll be updates. But you just want to make sure that your product backlog is being ordered, is being updated, is being reviewed. You are refining it. So what I mean is that your product backlog is a living document. Your product backlog is not something that you just do and you forget about it. It is living. You are updating. You are making changes. Okay, it's important. So if you have a product owner that doesn't do all this, I bet you there'll be a business analyst that has to put this work on their back. And if your business analyst is not good, your Scrum Master should be good. Because if not, your team is going to have issues. So is it that your Scrum Master is very good with Jira, or there's a business analyst supporting, or your product owner is solid, right? So if you are going to be in that kind of role, product manager, business analysis, Scrum Master, please learn tools, learn how to use tools, learn how to use Jira, learn how to use Confluence. There are a lot of videos, right? Learn how to use those tools. They are very important, because you get your product now and say, can you help me with this? I don't even know how to add this to, they expect the Scrum Master to just help, right? Even though it's not your responsibility, they expect you to just get in there and show them how to do it, okay? So you want to learn tools, very important. Product backlog refinement, right? So this is what I say, that your product needs to be refined, right? So, and remember that as things are constantly evolving, I said it already, that you want to make sure that you are refining that backlog, right? And most time when you do refinement, is the product owner and the development team, everyone will come together and refine that backlog, right? So when they want to estimate, the development team is responsible for the estimation, right? They will estimate. It's not the product owner that will tell the developer that will do the work that, oh, no, it should not be more than 3 story points. Really? Really? No, that's not your responsibility. The responsibility of the developer to estimate, right? And the Scrum Master should be there to ensure that the product owner is not influencing them, right? In terms of changing, what they think how long it's going to take them to get the job done, okay? So this is just like a guide for your backlog refinement, right? You have the Scrum team. If you need a shared resources, they are there. If you need any subject matter expert, you call them up, right? Frequency, 1 per sprint, usually after the midpoint of the sprint. So it can happen anytime, day 5, day 6, day 7, Just pick any day that works for you and your team, and you get it done, right? You refine your backlog. So what's the output? List of product backlog items for clarification and question that needs to be answered. The Scrum Master ensures the event takes place and is well facilitated. Scrum Master also ensures that this is time-boxed. I saw a role advertised as Scrum Master, but the JD mentioned the role as an associate product owner. Confusing. All the description were if you take that kind of role, you're on your own. No, you are going to do everything. Anyway, it's a learning point. Like, you learn, right? It's just that it's tough because you are on the two opposite ends. You are acting as the Scrum Master for the development team, and you are also the product owner, meaning you are the one getting the job from the stakeholder, putting everything together. You'll be, I don't want to say the word bias, but you keep like, oh, you guys need to get this job done. And there's nobody to help this development team to watch it that they are not being overworked, right? Because you are the product owner, you want to make sure they are getting the job done, but you're also the Scrum Master to shield them. So which part are you going to play, right? So it can be tough, right? So you want to look at the job description. So you don't get a job that will overwhelm you, because most organizations they don't even understand some of these things, right? So they just put everything out there. Especially when they put this JD out, it's HR that does the JD, right? They just tell them, oh, we need this. HR will look for, what makes sense, put everything together. But in some organizations, they are very detailed. They know what they're doing. In some organizations, you even get a job. They say Scrum Master, Project Manager role, right? You're doing everything together, okay? So you want to be sure, depending on what you want, right? So we've talked about this already, right? Product backlog, sprint backlog. Your product backlog includes a list of tasks required to be completed to achieve the product vision, right? Sprint backlog is just a subset of your product backlog, a subset, something you are going to complete during that 2 weeks or during that 4 weeks. That's your sprint backlog, okay? Your product backlog, anything that needs to be accomplished to accomplish the product vision, right? Product owner owns the product backlog. It can contain requirements, defects, tasks. Everyone contributes to the product backlog. Product backlog refinement meeting is to refine the product backlog. Now, sprint backlog, anything that needs to be fulfilled, the sprint goal. So anything that you need to do for that 2 weeks is your sprint backlog. Development team owns the sprint backlog. That means what they call them, the developers, they own the sprint backlog. This is the subset of the product backlog item defined as priorities by the product owner. Only development team contribute to the sprint backlog. Sprint planning meeting is where you refine the sprint backlog items. Okay, I hope that is clear. And your product increments is the new addition, right? The new thing you're adding, the new thing, what you finished at the end of the sprint. Okay. Can the Scrum team work on multiple items in the product backlog in one sprint? Multiple items. Yes. So what do you say multiple items? They'll pick items that they want to do, right? The items can be up to 20, for example. It doesn't mean the 20. So let's say, Sophie, you pick one item, you're doing it. You can finish that item within 2 days. You pick another item again, you start working on it, right? So they can work on multiple items. It's not only one item they work on, right? But if they estimate and one item is already like 8 story points, maybe to take it the whole sprint to do that one story, then that's the only story you might have to do as a person within that sprint. We're supposed to start user stories and estimation, but before that, let's just do some questions. Then we'll now start working. We'll now start this. And from this, we just start the simulation. I start explaining everything to you, burn down chart, the velocity. Then so I will explain this, then we'll now go straight into simulation. Then Monday, I'll give you like an initiative. I want you guys to put a user story together. Then on Monday, I'll need representative, so that while I'm doing the simulation, I need some people to represent the team while we are doing that, so that the simulation will be, easy and understandable. So let's do some questions in Kahoot, then we'll come back to user stories and estimations. Oh, Vinita, you couldn't see my screen?
Sorry, I can see now.
Okay. Let's do Kahoot. I'm trying to open it up. So the Kahoot is not, it's just for you to see, it's like another learning opportunity, right? So I think it will stick better, right? So that's why we're doing the Kahoot. Okay? To stick better. Even if you don't get it, you will remember, right? So the game pin is 66. Sorry, hold on. I don't even know which game I'm playing. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, products management. Okay, so you can use that product pin. Game pin 5001552. I can see people coming in. Okay, we have people coming in. Hello? Okay, so let's start. Anyone that wants to join will join after. Product management is sorry, we're not supposed to do product management, right? We've done this already.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done this, sorry.
That was the last one you did.
That was the last one, okay. I was wondering why it's showing that. Okay, let me change. I need to go to my, 1 second.
Please, Florence, can you quickly share the game pin again? I think I'm
No. Everyone should be out.
Okay.
I'm gonna get another pin.
All right. Okay.
Yeah. I just need to log in 1 second. Okay. I picked the wrong game. We're supposed to do Scrum. Okay. It's the one we're supposed to do. Sorry about that, okay? Okay, so the game pin is 2864755. 2864755. Just test your knowledge, okay? Okay, let's start. We have 40 people, 41. Let's start, okay? What does it mean to say that an event is time-boxed? Okay. The event must happen at a given time. No, that's not what that means. When they say something is time, it means that the event cannot take more than a maximum number of time. Right? So that's what that means. It means that if you say the event is 4 hours, you cannot do more than 4 hours. That's what it means by time box. So when you say daily scrum is 15 minutes, it's time box to 15 minutes. Okay? So if the event must happen at a given time is not time box. Okay? Well done, Roland. Who is Buhari? Moradike. Is that real name or the time box for the sprint planning event is? Okay. So when you say 4 hours, what does 4 hours mean to you? For people, I want someone that picked 4 hours. What does 4 hours mean to you? So the time
4 hours for a 2-week sprint.
Exactly. So did we put 2 weeks there? We didn't put 2 weeks. You get. So when you look at it, 4 hours, you're now wondering 4 hours means what, right? You get what I'm saying, right? I know a lot of people know that 4 hours is 2 week sprint, right? But it's just that they've already put it in their head that, okay, 4 hours, right? Because you can get to an organization, they will say, no, we want to run a monthly sprint, right? A 1 month sprint. So for a 1 month sprint, the time box is 8 hours. So for shorter sprint, is usually shorter, right? So what that means is that if they are running a 2 week sprint, it's going to be 4 hours. If they are running a 1 week sprint, then it's going to be 2 hours. You understand? It's time box, but I'm saying that it doesn't mean that you have to use all that time for that planning. I hope it's clear. Okay? Because I know you understand it, but you used to also know the way the questions will be. This is the way the questions will be asked, right? So, before all the questions I was giving you, I was forming them now. So, but these are questions. These are sample questions, right? For people that want to do PSM. These are the sample questions, right? So I want you to understand the way the questions will be asked, right? Obviously, if you see 4 hours, you know that that's a 2 week sprint. But they are not telling you that, they are not asking you for a sprint planning for 2 hours. They're just saying, what is the time box? So it's usually 8 hours for a monthly sprint. But if you are running a shorter sprint, it's shorter. So think in exam form, okay? Good job. Good job, Messi. Just me. The Katito. Nkiru. Buhari. Okay, more Agile. Let's see. Good job. Good job. For those that pick Scrum Master is not Scrum Master, I'm sure I mentioned that several times, right? What are the final say on the order? The product of the product backlog is the product owner, right? Remember, is accountable. Okay? Good job for those that got it. Just me, Messi. Okay, the board is still the same. Messi, you got 3 answers in a row. Good job. Let's go to the next question. Correct. Empirical process. Remember, empirical process, right? So that's it. For those that pick define hybrid complex, no, that's not the answer. It's empirical, right? Good job. Good job. Let's see. Next question. So these are the questions from scrum.org. So this is a multi-select answer. You're going to pick more than one answer. So for this, you're going to pick more than one answer. Good job. Good job. No project manager on the Scrum team, right? No project manager. Okay. Good job. Good job. Gafar, you've climbed up 10 places. Good job. Which one of the following is not an artifact in Scrum? Which one is not? Good job. Good job. Release is not an artifact in Scrum. We have sprint backlog, product backlog, and product increment. Good job. Good job. You see that you can do the exam? So if you're ready for it, EVP, well done. 4 places of we still have Just Me, Messi, Tekatito, Buhari, and Inkiro. We have a lot of people getting it, but you know, it's fastest finger. Time box for daily Scrum. Good job. Good job. Almost everyone got this except one person. Good job. 2 minutes per person. Who defines that? We're just prescribed 15 minutes. You can decide in your team that you do 2 minutes per person, but what Scrum Guide has prescribed is 15 minutes. Okay? Good job. Well done. Tekatito, you've gotten 7 in a row. Well done. Multi-select question. The 3 pillars of empiricism are multi-select answer. Good job. Good job. The people that still pick planning, I don't know. I don't have answer for you. Well done, Messi, Just Me, Inkiru Muradeke, Roland. J, well done, up by 8 places. True or false question? I don't trust people to get this answer, but let's see. The answer is false. Okay, the answer is false. So you know that when you release something at the end, I said that your product increment can even be a document that you guys did. It can even be a research. You understand? So it's not that every time you are finished your 2 weeks, there's something to release for production, right? It might even be something that the users can use there. It can just be one portion. Maybe you still need to do about 3 sprints before you release to production, okay? So it's not every time you have a product increment, you are mandatory to release it into production. It's not mandatory, okay? Well done, Gigi, coming up. Laura, Roland, well done. Gafar, you're back in the game. Which description best fit the role of a product owner? When you hear the word product owner, which one suits the product owner more? Value maximizer. Requirement collector, bow. Value maximizer. That's what suits the product owner. That's the best fit for the product owner. Requirement collector can be anybody now. Even business analyst can collect requirements. Even developer can write requirement, technical requirements, right? But the product owner is the value maximizer for the team. Okay? Chief business analyst, wow. No. Erica, you're back in the game. Well done, Jasmine, Mercy, Roland, Laura, and Gigi. 3 more questions. Which of the following is responsible for the sprint backlog in Scrum? Which one of them is responsible for the sprint backlog? Developers. Scrum Master? No way. Sprint backlog is the developer, not the Scrum Master. Sprint backlog, developers. Products backlog, products owner. Okay? Well done, Muradike. Well done, Kene. 4 places up. True or false question. Agile is another name of Scrum. True or false? Good. Agile is not another name for Scrum. Okay? Good. Well done, Laura. Just me, Messi, Roland, Muradeke, Buhari. Well done. Last question. Good job, good job, good job, good job. So at least we have an idea. Well done. And for our podium, for the 3rd place, we have Laura. Well done, Laura. 2nd place, we have Messi. Well done, Messi. And 3rd place, we have 1st place, we have just me. Well done. And for the 4th runner-up, we have Muradeke and Gigi. Well done, everyone. Someone was asking me for these questions. You don't need to ask me for this question. Just go to scrum.org, okay? Just go to scrum.org, right? When you get to scrum.org, go to, if you're looking for PSM, go to PSM, right? You see, okay, these are for the classes. Let's go to open assessments. Scrum, open assessment. You can see, then you start assessment. You can see, I just started one, right? Continue, start. You see questions. When does a developer become the sole owner of an item on the sprint backlog, right? So you start answering the question and you start getting to know it. If you finish this one, you start another one again, okay? So you don't need, that's where I got those questions from, okay? So the more you read about it, the more you learn about it, you keep getting to know about it, okay? So the more you try to study it, you get to know more about it, okay? And that's why I also said that try and join forums where they talk about it, where they discuss these things, right? Because you get your organization, you'll see different things, right? You want to understand why they are doing it that way and all that, okay? So we've talked about this already, the Scrum event, the artifact, and the rules, right? If you are still having a bit of issues, watch the videos, and, it will help a lot. And do more research, and you get to know more about it, okay? So user stories. I want to believe everyone here is familiar with user stories. So I'm just going to quickly talk about user stories, right? So what am I trying to say here, right? In Scrum, most of the time, this is the way they organize their user stories, right? So they always have a feature, a theme, right, that they use, right? And they will now have epic, right? So from those epic, they will break it down into user stories. And for each of the user stories, they will have an acceptance criteria, right? So you can see in the on my right here, I said requirements in forms of user stories. All those user stories are just requirements. Those requirements you are used to on a project, that's what those user stories are, right? So you can see that there's a user story life cycle, right? Because at the beginning, you are identifying, you are trying to get the user stories, right? Document those user stories. As you are documenting those user stories, you have PO, you have the architect, you have the BA, everyone is trying to look at it. They keep elaborating, they try to design until everything is ready, they refine, is ready for development. They develop. After those things have been developed, you test it. After it has been tested, the business will also test it. That's the UAT. After that, they accept it and they move it to production, right? So user story also have a life cycle, right? And in Agile, in Scrum, when you're documenting, you document user stories. Most of the time you write using user stories, right? And you can also use story map, right? This is an example of a story map, right? So what they are doing here is that they are putting a story map together to say, these are the things we want to do. This is how we want to break down our story, right? So when they have this, then they will now use this to actually understand what they want to do and put them into releases. So what you have there that is called release 1 is your MVP. That's what your MVP is, right? So you are mapping your story. So this is like what a story map looks like. We'll do one now, right? We'll do one now and we'll close with that, okay? So what makes a good user story? What makes a good user story? So this is some of the things that makes a good user story. You are right, your user story must have who, what, and why, right? What do you want that user story to be able to achieve, right? Who is going to use that user story? Who are you writing it for? What are you trying to do? And why are you trying to do it, right? And it must have acceptance criteria, right? So when that story is developed, when it's being developed, what are you going to say that, oh, with this, I can accept the story. With this, I know you are finished developing what I want, right? With this, I know it is working. So those are the acceptance criteria. We'll also do that now and you'll see what that looks like. Then supporting model. Supporting models are just things that you can use to support your user story that can help the developers understand what you want, right? So, an example is those UX UI design. I can write something, but when I put them into diagrams, right, it's easier for me. So for some business analysts, we use something like PowerPoint. Some we use if they are good, some of them will use things like Figma. They will use things like Balsamic to document it. Sometimes, if you're a business analyst on the team, you might also have someone they call UX UI design. So you will just write the requirement, but the UX UI design will put it together for you in form of a design, right? If you're doing Salesforce, right, as you are documenting the requirement, you will now put it in App Builder, right? You are not coding. You are just putting it in App Builder to show that, is this what you are trying to do? So those are what we call the supporting model. You are putting all the supporting model so that it will be easier for the users to say, okay, this is what we want, right? And the developer to be able to code. Yes, you can use Visio too. You can use Visio. You can use Lucid Chat. So those are some of the tools that you can use to actually do those supporting model. So that's what a good user story looks like, right? It's not all your user story will have supporting model, but if they can have, it's always good to have a supporting model. And these are the ways you can write your stories. So you can write it in form of a behavior, or you can write it in the form of a test-driven, right? So you write, as a user, I want to be able to do this so that I can achieve this goal. Then you now put your acceptance criteria together, right? The second one, I prefer the second one. I use the second one, the one by Richard, right? You write it as a story, who, right? You write the stakeholder, let's say as a, so you are not, you remember when I was talking about persona the other time, that you use people to represent a particular set of what they want, right? So something, remember when I was telling you about something like this? Just 1 second. I thought I saw it now. This is a persona. They are using Jane to represent a certain set of people, right? So that persona, let's say that we are looking at Jane as someone that you know, we want to build something for emerging musicians, and Jane is an emerging musician. You now say I'm going back to the user story now. You now say as a, you put the stakeholder, as an emerging artist, I want to be able to record my music so that I can have an opportunity to sell them, right? Additional detail just means that what else can you tell us about that story that can help us develop that story? Then you now put an acceptance criteria together to say, this is what we use to accept that story, right? This is what we need to do to be able to accept that story. So you put the acceptance criteria together. Then that's what makes your good user story. Then you now estimate that story. I'm going to show you how to estimate. Then you estimate that story. Okay? Now, there's, you know, we talk about definition of ready before you can move a story to a sprint, right? These are some of the things that organizations use to determine their definition of ready, right? Independent, can work deliver value by itself? What does that mean? It's not depending on another work. So before you move it to the sprint, you want to be sure that it's not depending on another work, right? It can stand on its own, right? Is it valuable, right? Is it small, right? Is it small enough? Because if it's too big, right, you cannot, if you put it in the sprint, it will be too big to be delivered. So most of the time we use Fibonacci series. I will teach you how to do that too. So you now say that if it's more than 8 story points, you break it down again. You break that story again because it's too big. So you want to make sure it's small. You want to make sure it's estimable. What do you mean by estimable? I can estimate it. You know, sometimes you see some story, you can't estimate it. You're saying, I'm not sure. Is it going to be? It looks, you know, when it's not estimable, that means it is complex. You need to break it down so that it's estimable. You can estimate it. You can test it, and it's negotiable. When they say it's negotiable, so what are we building? Why are we building this thing, right? So you can negotiate with it. So these are the things they use for definition of ready, right? And definition of done is the team will come together and agree to determine what their definition of done is. And when you are building your definition of done, you build technical excellence into your work. So we'll say that for you to say that this is done, it must have gone through quality assurance. It must have gone through user acceptance testing. You understand? So you are building your definition of done. Someone cannot just finish work and say, we are done. We are done from where? Have you gone through the checklist for the definition of done? Okay, yes. Then you now agree that, okay, you have actually, you know, completed that feature or that story, right? So you come together as a team to determine what that definition of done is. Okay? You said who built the user story? I think they've given you answer, the product owner and the BA. So some stories are very technical. So some part of the stories can be developed by the technical lead, as well, right? So if they are talking about performance, for example, let's say you want to write a story on performance. What is performance? Performance is a non-functional requirement. So yeah, you guys are building something and you're asking that, oh, I want this website to be available during peak period, right? We'll have more users, right? Maybe generally you have 40 people visiting the website. Now during peak period, you will have about 400 people, so that system can perform under that load, right? You say, okay, you now start saying, oh, we want it to be scalable. Or can we make sure it's auto balancing or load balancing, auto scaling, right? So those kind of requirements, sometimes the PO might not be able to write it, or the technical lead will write it, okay? So the major people that write stories is the product owner. It can be the BA, it can be the product manager, okay? There's no role as BA, yes. So that's why I said the developers, right? But you know the person has a BA skill, right? So your skill, in the Scrum team, you are represented by your skill. You have a skill matrix. In the skill matrix, you know this person has a business analysis skill. This one can code front end, right? So they are represented using your skill, right? But I'm sure if you get to organization, you still have a title. I'm not saying you don't have a title, but within that team, you are not represented by your title, okay? Okay, so let's do a story. Let's try to put a story together, okay? Let me first show you an example of what I was saying when it comes to this who, what, why, acceptance criteria, and supporting model, okay? So I want us to put a story together because I'm going to use it to explain that. And Temitope, why are you laughing?
Sorry, when you said there was no BA on, I think it was someone that said there's no BA on the team, and it was funny to me because they are all called developers, but they have, at least from where I was coming from,
they have skills. They have different skills. You know, when they want to employ you, you are still going to have roles, right? You are still going to have roles, like they will tell you, oh, we need a business analyst, but you're going to be working in an agile environment. But when you now get into the agile team, it doesn't mean that you can only do business analysis work, right? It means that you can also do testing, right? If you have the skills to do testing, right? But you know, when they employ you, they call you business analysis. So that's what I mean, that someone that have a business analysis skill within that Scrum team will help with the user stories. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Obi. Obi, or I didn't put the name more. Okay.
Obi, yeah, it's okay. My question is, please, going back to that, when you were trying to explain the user story thing, you went back to the different types of which you picked up the persona. Can we go back there? I just have a question.
Okay. Let me share my screen. To go to the persona, right?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Okay, so now, right, is this story based on Jane's behavior?
So yes, they picked Jane, right? They want to build something. They now say, okay, let's pick Jane. They will now start determining what Jane likes. Who is Jane? They will document it. Jane's behavior, they will document it. The goals of what Jane wants, they will document. What are the pain points for Jane? they will document the pain points. Everybody is discussing, they are thinking about it, they are trying to replicate who Jane is, right? Why are they doing that? They are trying to understand Jane's behavior so that they can write that user stories from that perspective, right? Remember when we are talking about product strategy, there are different ways, right? You can use persona, right? Some, they can use a competitive analysis, right? To now decide that, okay, this is what is unique to our organization. These are the strengths. So from those strengths, they will now determine that these are the features, the things we want to implement, right? It will help them determine that, right? So some people use persona to determine that.
Okay, so the question, where I'm still confused is Jane the owner of this product now?
Jane is not the product owner. Jane is just an arbitrary person. Like, it can be David.
I know, see. Okay. Because from the word, right, persona or what, it's like someone's, how we perceive someone, the characteristic. So we are using a subject now like Jane. Who is Jane?
Jane is an idea. Okay. Let's forget about Jane, right? Okay, let me do an example so that it will make sense to you. Okay. Forget Jane. Jane does not exist now. Forget Jane. I'm going to my board and I'll give you an example. So after that example, if it makes sense, let me know. Okay?
Okay.
I'm with you, Obio. Wait, hold on. Let me share my screen. I want Jane to leave your head. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, so let's do, let's say, Erica. Okay, Erica wants to open a restaurant. Hold on, let me clean this. 1 second. So let's say Erica wants to open a restaurant, right? Now, for Erica to open a restaurant, Erica is thinking, what are going to be my customers? What kind of customers will I have? I don't even know. But Erica is planning to open a restaurant in Toronto, right? In Toronto. That's where she wants to open a restaurant. And she's going to be doing a lot of fast food. She's going to prepare fast foods, right? So those fast food, let's say that, let me do boxes because this typing. Okay, so let me see. Still the same thing. Okay. It's not what I want. I was thinking I'm gonna do. Okay, let me just continue. So let's say Erica wants to do this fast food, right? Now, Erica wants to make sure that she serves the right customer, right? She wants to build a fast food in Toronto. So she now wants to use persona to determine what our requirements will be, right? Erica will now say, let's say David, right? Erica is going to say, David, let's use David to represent people that works in Toronto, right? People that work in Toronto. Erica can now say, let's use Roland for young adults, right? Erica will now say, David, if David is the persona, who is David? You first define who David is. David is someone that works in Toronto, right? David doesn't live in Toronto, but comes to Toronto every day to work, right? That's who David is. We'll now start describing the behaviors of David. Oh, David, they might even say, oh, maybe David is a bachelor, or they might say David is even a married man, but he's working. His wife is also working. They don't have time to get their lunch ready to get to work. You know, they want to they prefer to get to work on time because they live far. You know, that's their behavior, right? You are determining their behavior, right? After that, you now say, what are the goals that David wants to achieve when it comes to food? David wants a situation where he can get food downtown where he works, right? David wants to get food in downtown where he works, right? David wants to get food downtown where he works, right? Now, David wants to get the food on time, right? David wants to get that food on time. He doesn't want a situation where the food is taking time, right? So you are determining, putting the goals together. You now say pain points. Oh, David likes some special food, but that food is not available. You are describing David's pain point. Let's say David is from Nigeria. David likes to eat, let's say, jollof rice. I'm just using an example, jollof rice, but that food is not available. So you're already describing David's pain point, right? So when Erica is now gathering requirements, when Erica is putting our epic together, putting our teams together, he's using the David's characteristics, David's pain points to determine the food. So when he's saying that, oh, I want to build something, I want to plan this fast food, or I want to make it available for David, or David, this fast food is even existing, but David cannot find us. I want to create a website for David because David is someone that likes to get things online, right? David is someone that likes to quickly browse things and get it. So, Erica, you have that restaurant, but you want to put it online for David to be able to have access to it because you know that David, if David knows that this restaurant exists, David will be able to get food from you. So, describing David is that persona. You will go to Roland again. That's another persona. You describe Roland, young adult. He lives in Toronto. He lives alone. He doesn't stay with his parents. What is his goal? Roland just wants a situation where he can order food, Nigerian food, and he wants to be able to do it online for them to deliver to his house. So what are his pain points? He can't even see any website to get a Nigerian food. He just wants to sit in the comfort of his house and the food should be delivered to his house, right? That is Roland. Roland is not the person you are talking to. You are talking to young adults. You are just using Roland as an example. Does it make sense to you?
Okay, I see. Like you broke it down into, let me say, different demographics.
Exactly.
And you're trying to assume their personalities, like young adults, they would like music, they want to download it and all that.
Exactly.
Senior citizens, they don't like it this way. And then in that demographic, use one name to assume them.
Exactly.
Okay,
so that will now help you to determine it will help you to gather your requirements. You are using that personnel to gather your requirements. I can see a lot of things in the comments, right? And demographics, psychographics, exactly. That's what you're trying to do, right? You're trying to get that detail to help you. People that do this mostly are people that are very good with design. They're into UX, UI, right? That is their specialty, right? They get all these things together. Okay, so now imagine, let's say we now have different demographics, right? So let's say that we have Chini that wants this website, right, to be able to order food. So you are now saying that you, as the business analyst, as the product owner, they've given you this role, Obi, to say, Erica needs this website to have a fast food showcase that she had the fast food in Toronto and she can deliver to people. Now you have this demographic. So what will you start doing? You now start taking, let's say Chini wants a web application, somewhere she can see on her computer. Roland wants a mobile application. Roland wants to be able to see it on mobile, right? You're giving different ways how they want to see it. You as the product owner or as the business analyst, you now start coming together with the team that, okay, how can we put this together, right? How can we document this requirement from this personnel, right? You now say, okay, let's focus on our first MVP, or let's focus on this first team. What will be the team here? Let's say we want to, I don't know, I was looking for something that I can use to write, but nothing is working for me here. And this is, my system is a touchscreen, but it's not working.
Yeah, I think I get a hand anyway.
Okay, so let me use text, okay? So let's say we now say Erica's, is Erica's kitchen, right? That's what we're doing here, right? Now, we're not saying that the team for this is, we want to build a web application for Erica's kitchen. So that's what we want to do, right? So now this web application is, that's the team we are focusing on, right? So now that we have that team, from that team, we now want to break it down into the different epic areas, right? We want to break it down. So maybe you will start thinking of things like, okay, so, someone said something about process yesterday. That process also helps you to break things down, right? You are not saying that, okay, for Chini, for this web to work, for this web application for Erica's kitchen to work, what would Chini want to see? Before Chini can order food from Erica, obviously Chini wants to browse, right? We're not talking about what Chini wants to browse, but Chini wants to browse, right? So you can now put that as one epic, right? You can now say browse. That is one epic, right? What else would Chini want to do apart from browsing the site, right? Obviously, if Chini is browsing the site, she's browsing the site for different reasons, right? What's she browsing the site for? She wants to browse for food.
To place orders.
Make an order.
Exactly. So Chini wants to make an order, right? So that's another epic for you. She wants to make an order. Okay, what if she makes an order? What else would she want to do on Erica's website?
You want to pay.
Delivery.
Make payments.
You want to make payments. Exactly. That's another epic for you. You want to make payments. So you have that. You want to make payments. You think again, what do you think Erica wants to do on that website? She
wants it delivered
So she wants the food to be delivered to her, right? Which is one of the key things why she wants it in the comfort of her house, right? So you have deliver, right? Now you have epics, right? I'm going to stop there. There are more epics, right? It's not like this is the end of the epic, right? There are more epics, right? So let's say we stop there. So when we look at the epic browse, what do we think Chini wants to browse?
Menu,
right? So now that is how you now start putting all your stories together. So someone just said menu. What else do you think she wants to browse?
The pricing.
the pricing. She wants to know the pricing. What else do you think she wants to browse?
What do you browse now?
The reviews.
Reviews, right? So reviews of what? So do you think the review should be when she's browsing or when she's ordering? You think when she's browsing, right? She should be able to review what has been done in the past, right?
Yep.
Exactly. What else do you think she wants to do, she wants to be able to do? When she's browsing, she might want to make a call, right? Maybe she doesn't understand something, right? That means she should be able to, exactly, she should be able to browse contacts. So you and the team are forming all these stories based on those interactions, right? That's why it is an interactive process, right? Now, when you go to order, what are the things you think she should be able to do in order? What do you think? The what?
Place an order.
Yes. So for her to place an order, will she just place an order? Does she need to log in?
She'll create an account, perhaps.
Exactly. So she needs to be able to create an account, right? What else do you think she should be able to do?
Select a food.
Select what?
Select
meal. The meal she wants.
Okay. So select a meal, right?
Yep.
So she should be able to select a meal. What else will she be able to do?
Payment option.
Payment option, you think under payment as the epic. So that's why I was saying that depending on how the team wants to structure their epic, add to cart, right? So when she selects the meal, because she might want to order more than one thing, right? So she should be able to add to cart. So should I say add and delete, right? Because you can add and also remove if you don't want. So add and delete.
Delivery, okay, under delivery options.
Exactly.
Uber Eats, or what kind of delivery option are we looking
now
at?
Now you're with me. So delivery option, you're thinking.
I've always been with you, Flo.
So mobile, like, okay, mobile, right? What other ways? You know?
Pickup. You can
pick up. You have pickup option. What other ways?
Which one is mobile?
Eating.
You know that website is up on her this thing. Now everybody now knows that she has that restaurant. So people can come and eat over at her restaurant as well, right?
Not eating, no. Eat in.
Eat in, sorry. Eat in. What else? Let's go to payments. What are the options does she have for the payment to happen?
You finish payment type, maybe from credit card to debit and all this stuff.
Exactly. Credit card.
Cash.
Debit card.
PayPal.
Cash. Which way again? PayPal.
Yeah, or pay on delivery.
Pay on delivery. I think Domino's does that, right?
Yeah.
Apple Pay.
Apple Pay. I've not used that before.
Orange Pay.
What else again? Gift card. I saw one now. Gift card. Yeah. Something like payment with points. You know, the ones that the bank
like loyalty.
Loyalty cards.
Never seen e-transfer payment.
E-transfer.
Yeah, I've never seen it though.
Yeah.
You have gift card option too.
Maybe that would be the option that will make us different. Right? So now we have all our story cards, right? Under each of those things. But it doesn't mean that this is it, right? It just means that this is our starting point, right? We have an understanding of what we want to do. At this point, we are now saying that for this website to come on, we need to decide what will be our MVP. What are the things we need to do for this thing to be up, right? at least let's start something. Then we can now keep making the website better, right? We'll look at browse. Maybe menu should be one of the things we want to quickly do, right? Let's remove pricing for now. Or no, we'll say no, maybe we should do pricing. Or yes, let's say review. We will not do review now.
Yeah, later.
You understand? Because do we even have reviews that we want to put? Is it not after a while that we'll have
it's a new website?
Eh?
I said it's a new
website, exactly. We'll now have reviews here that we're not doing reviews now. But we want to focus on these first 3 things for our MVP. We come here, create accounts. Do you want to do that now? Everybody should be able to create an account in the first MVP. We need to be able to select a meal. We need to be able to add to cart. So we'll say all this one, we want to do it in our MVP. Then payment option, you can say, oh, for us to build credit card, for us to do debit card, we need to contact a third party. That means we need to have an integration with the bank. No, we don't want to start with that. That will start costing us money. Okay, let's just do PayPal for now. You understand? Or we'll say, okay, let's do PayPal, right? Let's do PayPal. Let's do pay on delivery. Now we are talking about our first MVP, something we want to release so that they can start using it, right? As we go along the way, we'll be adding more to it. So what we need to do so that they can release, right? We'll now come here. What option do you think we should do first? We'll say, which one is easier for us to do? I think pick up for MVP. I will answer your question, Sophie. For the delivery, let's say, okay, right now, we know mobile, we are going to do a lot of integration with mobile and all that. Let's do pickup for our first MVP. Let's do pickup. So our first MVP will be pickup, right? Our first MVP will be pickup. We'll say this one, we'll move it to the back. Now, all these things, yes, all this thing we have here is all in the backlog. This is our roadmap, like our story mapping. We are mapping our story here, right? So, but what we are doing here is that we are now saying that for MVP, what we want to focus on first is the one at the top. So if I do something like this, I'm now separating it to say the one here are what we'll focus on first. These are the things we'll be doing after. So the one at the top here is what you see them calling something, the first one up here, release 1. So this is what you want to release first, which is your MVP, your release 1. So when you hear things like, what are we releasing? This first one, this MVP is your release 1. The backlog again, you would define, you say, okay, what are we doing next? Anything you cut, let's say you cut it halfway somewhere, like this, something like this. This can now be your release 2, right? We've not done estimation. No, I'm just showing you, this is how they do the story mapping. This is how they will now determine what their MVP is, right? They will now say, this is what we want to do in release 2. Then this one, the last one at the bottom, release 3. Right? Now, this is just the beginning, the story mapping. You're mapping the story. You've not even, it's not like it's finalized. This is just your story mapping to say this, yes, this is your product backlog item. This is what will go into your product backlog item. So these are your story card. So what you did is you did the first thing, which is web application for Erica's Kitchen. Then you have your epic, browse, order, payment, delivery. Then you now have your story card. When you now have, you first talk about all the story card as a team. Then you now start determining what should be your MVP. Then when you have your MVP, the other ones, you now start saying, okay, this one will come in release 2, this one will come in release 3. But it doesn't mean that when you release this MVP 1, feedback will come from the user, feedback will come from the stakeholder. You will update it. It might even affect what your release 2 will be, right? But as a team, you first do this story mapping, right? When you do this story mapping, then you have what we call your product backlog items. This is not how it will go into your product backlog, right? No, MVP is what you are releasing first, minimal viable product, right? What is, some people call it what you release each time, but most of the time when you hear MVP, they're talking about the first release. Because the other release you are adding to it is an increment to make it better, increment to what you already have. So when you think MVP, think of the minimal viable product you are releasing into the public or into your stakeholders.
So we can refer to release 2 as MVP.
You can refer to release 2 as MVP. It's also an MVP, right? Is also a minimal viable product that can be used, right? But the way I see it, the way we call it increments. Release 2 is an increment because you have something already. So think of minimal viable product as the minimal thing you can release that can be used. So I get where you're coming from, Mo, because when you are doing release 2 as well, you are not going to release something that they can't use, right? For you to release another thing, it has to be something that is usable. It must be viable. So I get where you're coming from. But most time when you get to organization, it's just an increment to your products, right? Yeah, a product increment. That's what you're doing. Hope that is clear. Okay, great. So that's your release 1, your release 2, and your release 3. So that is your story mapping. What we did now is story mapping. We've not even estimated, though. We don't know how many sprints it will take us. I'm going to teach you how you are going to estimate it, how you are going to know how many sprints it will take you for you to have your first release. I'll teach you all that next week, okay? But what I'm showing you is that this is how the story map happens. Right? Now, I will show you something. For each of this story map, for each of this story card, menu, pricing, contact, you are still going to break it down and write acceptance criteria, right? You are still going to write it in this way. I will show you that, then we close with that, okay? Let me show you something. With my Excel open. Let me see. Okay, I have something open here. So you are still going to have something like this. Let me show you my Excel. So we'll close with that, okay? Can you see my screen? No, let me share again. I think I'm sharing the wrong screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you will now pick, so look at login. Let's say login is one epic. Let's say login is under order, right? Login is one story card under that epic order, right? Epic name, sample is order. Login is one story card. You now write the user story for that story card login. As a web user, I want to log into Yinka's cuisine so that I can order my food when hungry. Then you now write acceptance criteria for that login. So you are saying that on the login page, there should be 2 fields for email and password, right? Pass or fail just means that if you are testing and there is 2 pages, then and there's 2 fields for email and password, it passes. But if there's no 2 fields, then it will fail. There should be a call to action called forget password at the bottom of the page, pass or fail, right? So if there's nothing like that, you cannot accept that story. When I click on the call to action, it should take me to forget password page. If it doesn't happen, then it has failed. The logo should be on the top middle of the login page. So what am I saying? What will make you accept this login story? these are the things you will check as the quality assurance person. So you will do a manual test. Some people will do scripting. They will turn all this thing into script to test all these stories, right? Remember when I said supporting model, supporting document, this is a supporting document to this story. The business analysts have put it together to show that, or the product owner or the product manager has made sure that there's something showing what the users want, how they want it to look like. I did this using PowerPoint. So you can use PowerPoint, you can use Figma, you can do all those things, right? So you put that. So this is a sample of what it is, right? But before we start detailing all into the story, we'll do estimation next week, then we'll start from there. So we'll not use this example anymore. We'll have a new example. I'm going to give you that example. What I want from you people is to take that example. You come up with a product vision based on what I talked to you about product vision. If you are comfortable with the vision box, use it. If you are comfortable with the elevation pitch, use it, right? Just come up with something. We'll look at it together. Come up with a product vision, right? And come up with epics, right? Based on your product vision, determine a team. Pick one of it as a team and write some epics, right? Under one epic, write some stories and come. That's what I need, okay? So that we have something to use. I don't want us to be starting all over from the beginning. You get what I'm saying? So come up, I'll give you the story now. I'm gonna put it in the chat, right? I'll give you the story now. When I give you the story, you come up with a product vision based on what I've taught you. Come up with if you can do personnel, good for you, you're learning, but we'll do that next week. Come up with the personnel and all that, then write some epic and stories and bring it on board. So because when I'm teaching you, after I teach you all those estimations, then we'll run a sprint from sprint 0 to the end, okay? Sprint 0 is what you do before you actually start sprint 1. It's like preparing, we call them initial planning. That's the initial planning, okay? So we'll run through that next week, okay? Any question before we go? Sorry that I took some time. I just needed to explain that before we leave, okay? Any question?
Hi, I have a question in the chat. I said, how do you handle dependencies while doing story mapping or prioritizing?
How do you, yes, you have to consider dependency. Okay, let's look for example now. Let's say that we know when we're in order, if you now say that, oh, I want them to be able to order food, you are saying you want them to be able to select and add to menu, but you now say create account, you do it in MVP, you do it in release 2. Does it make sense? You get it more? You know that for them to be able to click to order food, they need to have an account. So create an account is a dependency, right? So for you to order food, you have a dependency. You first need to be able to develop the create account story. Does it make sense? So when you are prioritizing, the create account needs to come before you are able to select your order and add to cart. Is it clear? Mo?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. So we understand that. So I'm going to give you the initiative. I'm going to drop it in the chat. So you are going to be acting either as a product owner or a business analyst in this situation, okay? So if we can document a persona, do that, okay? Let's see what you come up with, okay? So I'm going to put it in the chat. Can't type this.
Hi, Florence. The materials, we've not gotten it yet.
Which material? The material I said I was going to give you.
Yes, you said Emmanuel was sent it yesterday.
No, I did say yesterday. Okay, I'll send today. You get it. If you don't get it this night, you get it tomorrow.
Thanks.
Okay. Is it easy for you to copy from the chat, or you want them to send this to you as well?
Yes, send it to via mail.
Okay. So I'll pass this to Ima to send. But for people that can copy it from the chat,
I'll put it in the WhatsApp group.
If for the people that can copy here, they can copy as well. Okay. Okay. So and you also get it, okay, from the from Ima as well. I keep calling her Ima. I hope I'm correct. Ima, okay. Okay. So next week we'll continue. We'll now start the simulation. We'll go through it together, and I believe you will understand it. You also make your research. It will get better. You don't give up. You don't give up. Consistency. You don't give up. It will get better. Okay. And one thing you need to know is that, okay, I'll give you the guide as well. You read the guide. For those that want to do the exam, you read the guide. It will help you. And you can also practice question on scrum.org. Okay. But for this, I'm just teaching you what will happen in the real life, like when you actually get to work, what actually happens. Okay. And I'm sure you'll get it. Okay. Thank you, everyone. And thank you for staying 17 minutes more. Okay.
Yeah. Hi, Florence. No classes tomorrow, is there? Sorry.
No classes tomorrow. No classes tomorrow. To Monday. Yeah. Okay.
No problem.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
I wash my teeth, then getting naughty. Thank